Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and I don't suck, and neither does the Piffles podcast. But anyone who plays the Riders, they suck. Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. Get the feeling now. Get 'em high, get 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
Welcome to the Piffles podcast, your Saskatchewan Rough Riders fan podcast. Thanks so much for joining us this week. It's a very special episode because Steve's not here. My name is Alex.
I can only assume he is run off with Chris Streveler after they stared at each other across the field.
They were on the field at the same time together, and I know
Steve's dream.
Steve is pumped about that, and I have pictures that prove that they were on the field together. And Steve said he got the Winnipeg, but I think he just came down with a serious case of love for Chris Streveler.
Like, I wasn't on the bus, but everyone was texting me. He's like, Steve is unbearable. He's telling the bus driver to drive faster to get there for the Chris Streveler signings. Like, I can't imagine what it was like.
He was very hard to contain. He was saying words I've never heard him say before when talking about Chris Streveler. That's how excited he was about him. And I was at the tailgate and I couldn't find Steve for probably about half an hour. I can only assume that he booked her across the parking lot to IG Field to the Chris Streveler signing.
I can only imagine.
You can give us
actually he probably shut this off about what, 2 minutes ago? We're 2 minutes in. So.
We're about 2 minutes in. Yeah, about minute 59 ago is when he shut this off. Yeah. So goodbye, Steve. You can give us a follow on X at Piffles Pod. I'm at Real Alex D.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
Check us out on Facebook as well. And the website, pifflespodcast.com. Of course, Piffles Podcast brought to you by great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Make sure you go there and check them out this Friday before the game against the Elks coming up.
Lights out.
Well, that's exactly what this last game was.
Well, that was, yeah. They were lights out last game.
Yeah, literally nobody woke them up. The lights were out, and they did not show up to play. We're going to talk about the Banjo Bowl here. Let's go. It's time for the opening kickoff. All right, so the Riders lose 51-6, dropping the record to 6-6. And I don't want to dwell too much on this game. I do have questions on it, but first off, I want to say thank you to everybody that joined us on the Piffles podcast bus out to Winnipeg. It was an absolute blast. It was a great group. Lots of partiers, but nothing over the top. Everyone in Winnipeg was great to us, except for like 2 or 3. But you have to expect that anywhere you go. They were a little bit over the top.
Base has a couple of those. Exactly.
So I'm not too worried about that. It was great. I had my my shawarma con that I was super happy about, and it was just overall, except for the game itself, it was a blast.
Not gonna lie, on Saturday morning, seeing the pictures roll in, seeing the X's, tweets, zeets, whatever the heck they're called these days, I had serious FOMO going on. I was like, maybe I made a bad decision, and then the game started.
Well, the game started out pretty well for the Riders. It was a short kickoff for Winnipeg, and Tolagala led them to 3 points with a Lothar field goal. And hey, okay, 3 points off the bat. Let's go. This is going to be a pretty good game. And then Oliveira happened, and the Bombers happened, and it was just an easy drive for them to score, which didn't worry me too much to start. But when I saw the players leave the field, the defense, after Winnipeg scored their touchdown there, they all had their heads down. They were hanging their heads. And I'm like, there it is. This game is not going to be close.
They came out
just
flat.
A mess.
It was bad. Like, watching it on TV, you could tell they came out flat and like super flat. There was nothing there. They just had no answer for Oliveira. They had no answer for Zach. Like, they just could not do anything to stop that Bomber offense. And it was, you knew the route was on. You knew Winnipeg. I don't know whether it was the headbutt, whether it was we don't lose 2 in a row, whether it was the same thing they did to BC earlier this year, avenging a loss. The Bombers, when they're motivated, they don't mess around. And it's just ridiculous.
Honestly, that game, if you take away the middle 58 minutes or so, the Riders had a good start with the field goal and then forced them to punt at the very end. So if you look at those 2 minutes of gameplay, that was a pretty good game. Unfortunately, the 58 minutes in between absolutely sucked. But to me, that was the worst effort I've seen from the Riders in a long time. And that includes this game that was just in Montreal a month ago. They came out so flat in this one. It looked like they didn't care, specifically Nick Marshall and Jeremy Clark. They just seemed so disinterested. They were getting beat left and right. Deontay Williams was getting beat quite a bit as well, too. Obviously, he's injured now, didn't practice the first day of practice this week. But they look like a team, specifically the defense, that knew that they had a split in this series already, in the Labor Day and Banjo Bowl split. Like in that 2-game series, they got their win in Labor Day. Okay, no one's expecting us to win in the Banjo Bowl, so why even try? That's what it looked like. I know that's not how they go into it, but that's what it really, really looked like, and that was frustrating to see.
We said it all year about Nick Marshall, and even longer. He's hot and cold, and this was a cold game. Some of the plays I saw him make, even if he was near the ball carrier, like he legit tried to throw his shoulder into the back of Oliveira. It's like, you're not going to take him down that way. Like, you throwing a shoulder check into his back is not going to do anything. Try to grab something and take him down. It's just, he's going for that big hit, but that big hit's not going to work in that situation.
Well, Brady Oliveira, you mentioned him, had over 200 yards offense, had more offense himself than the entire Riders did. He was just on. He was on. I don't know how else to explain it. I put in my Tuesday takes that he's going to win the most outstanding Canadian. I don't think there's any real argument there, especially after Matthew Betts slowed down considerably for the Lions. But regardless of passport, he should be in the conversation for MOP because he's been fantastic this year. And he's the only receiver or running back over 1,000 yards currently anyway. And he's running away with the rushing title. He's a couple hundred yards up already. And he's a big part of Winnipeg's success. And I'm starting to really, really enjoy watching him play, even more so than I have the last couple of years.
To me, he's the anti-Andrew Harris. I enjoy watching him play. I really do. Like, he reminds me of Andrew Harris as a runner, but I actually like this guy. I respect this guy. So that's where I'm at with him. And I'm not going to lie, a few years ago when they had to make the decision of keeping Andrew Harris and keeping him a Bomber to the end of his career or dropping Brady, I was praying they were going to drop Brady because I wanted him to come wear Rider green so bad. But he's going to be a Bomber. Chances are he's going to be a Bomber for life. But he is so strong as a runner. You can't take him down. And he's a good person to boot. He's hard to hate. I would love to hate him, but you can't.
He rescues dogs. If you know anything about me, he's already my favorite player based on that. Like, he is just a genuinely good person. And you love seeing guys like that succeed in the CFL. And did he come through the junior program as well, or was he drafted?
He was, I think, drafted. Yeah, he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't a rifle. He wasn't a rifle. I know that.
Oh, okay, but
because he would have destroyed the CGFL if he did.
Yeah, but he's a great thing for the CFL, and I hope they can really start to market him across the country, as you know they did with Andrew Harris being the Canadian running back. They have Brady Oliveira to do it now, so hopefully they can bring that going forward.
He went to North Dakota, by the way.
But 600 yards of offense for this Bomber team in this game. 603, I think it was. Zach Claros was near perfect. Why they kept him in that game for so long, I have no idea.
I could not believe he was in that game that long. That made no sense. If he would have got hurt,
that just
like like Dakota Prokop, sure. Drew Brown, sure. But Zach, he's your franchise quarterback, and to leave him out in a game the Riders had no chance of even catching you. That just was so bizarre.
Well, when it's 42-6 at the half, they were clearly going to run the ball in the second half, just keep that clock moving as much as possible and don't get your franchise quarterback hurt. The fact that they didn't just put in Drew Brown or Prokop then was surprising. And
especially considering the week before he took a headbutt to the head and everyone was worried that he was dead.
Yeah, fortunately he didn't get hurt, which is always a good thing, but there's always that what if he did, and that, I mean, hindsight, of course, right? But that was baffling to me. But just the Riders defense giving up 600 yards, and I've always been a big Jason Shivers supporter, big fan of his, and it's hard to defend them right now because they're giving up so many yards. They're giving up a ton of points. And it's not just in this game. Even in the games they're winning, they're giving up a lot of yards, a lot of points. I'm starting to get worried about this defense. And sure, a lot of it does come to injuries in the secondary, but there's something missing from this defense. We saw on Labor Day, they came out flying and were absolutely dominant in that first half. And then they kind of fell flat the rest of the way. Same with the BC game. The first half, they were pretty good and then fell flat in the fourth quarter. Again, that was with injuries in that game as well. But what are you making of this defense right now?
I remember when Richie Hall was our defensive coordinator, everyone was talking about the bend but don't break defense he had. They still weren't giving up 600 points. They weren't giving 600 yards. They still weren't giving, the way this team is going.
The Riders might give up 600 points.
I was trying to look it up. Both the Alouettes and the Riders are 6-6 record. The Riders' point differential versus the Alouettes' point differential are night and day. It is ridiculous the amount of points the Riders have given up this year.
It's like 104 or something like that, I think, isn't it? It might even be more than that.
Like, it's ridiculous. I was trying to look it up while you were talking there, and I just couldn't, so I've given up. X is no longer easy to find stuff on. So it's, unfortunately, we're 6-6, but it's a scary 6-6. Yeah, we beat BC. Yeah, we beat the Bombers, but we lost we got blew out by the Bombers. We got blown out by the Alouettes. It's, for some reason, we have become a home team versus a road team. Like, the road games are adventures. The home games are adventures, but at least we're winning them.
The home games, they keep you interested until the end. The road games, the game's over before it starts. And I forget who posted this on Twitter, X, but the last 4 road games for the Riders, they've been outscored 142-40, which is an average of 35-10. And I looked it up. What are they scoring per game this season? Right now, they're being outscored 30-20 overall this season. So, they're scoring more points at home, but they're still giving up, 30 points a game every single game. And when you're down to your third string quarterback, that's not going to cut it when you're giving up that much in the CFL. Like, I know you're going to give up some points, but giving up 30 every single week, you're putting your offense in a really tough spot. And I'm starting to worry about this defense and how good they actually are. And I think they have some great playmakers on defense. I think they have some really good depth, but it doesn't seem like it's doing much right now.
They're susceptible to the big play, it seems. Like, when you think they're going to do a 2-and-out or they're going to make a big stop, all of a sudden a big play gets thrown on them and the team is in the end zone, or they make a boneheaded penalty and team gets to reset, and then they get their first down again. You cannot win games if you're giving up more points than you're scoring. Yet, and that's why we're at a 6-6 record. Like, this team can beat anybody, but they sure the hell can lose to anybody, and they're proving that.
Well, especially when these games they're getting blown out are on the road, they're going to have to play on the road in the playoffs. And that doesn't give me a lot of hope for them getting out of that West semifinal, even though let's just assume that it's probably going to be the Riders and BC. The Riders can play pretty well in BC, but I wouldn't put much confidence in that right now, at least with the way that they're playing currently. So they gotta tidy things up on the road anyway, because these last 4 games on the road have just been atrocious. And outside of a goal line stand against Edmonton and a very bad interception from Jake Mayer, those are the only 2 road wins the Riders have this year. The rest of the games they've lost. And
the good news is, if you break this season into thirds, this was the toughest of the thirds. You had Winnipeg twice, BC, in Montreal, Toronto. Like, this was a difficult portion of their schedule, and we're still 6-6.
Yeah, and to come out 3-3 in that, just the same as the first third of the year. I mean, big picture, yeah, I expected them to be a 9-9 team this year. So that's why I don't want to say, this team's bad and, cut everybody or fire anybody. Like, it's just that I kind of expected that to happen. I didn't expect these losses to be as embarrassing as they have been. I expected some of these wins to be by more than 2 points. Like, in 6 wins, their point differential is like plus 13 or 14. Like, if they're in the game, they can win it. They've shown that. But
they just need to be able to hang on.
Yeah, if the things go south fast, then I mean it's over. Which will lead me into my next question. But I do want to give a couple positive shout outs for this game to players. Adam Korsak had once he started directionally punting and getting the ball bouncing, he pinned them pretty deep. The defense sure didn't help him at all, but Korsak was pretty good in the Banjo Bowl. And the running of Thomas Bertrand Houdon, especially at the end of the game, he looked like he was the only one that seemed to care in that game. And I'd like to see the team get him more touches, because he runs hard. And we've seen him return a couple kicks when teams kick away from Mario Alford. The guy's got something. He's never going to be that guy that's going to break away and, rush for a 90-yard touchdown. But if he can give you hard yards inside and pick up 10, 12 yards every once in a while, give him the ball.
It's like he has no other gear. It's either he's not moving or he's full bore. Like, he hits every attempt at a hole hard. Like, he might not find it, but he's going to go through it. So, no, yeah, he was definitely trying at the end of that game. And maybe it was because he's like, hey, guys, this is my shot. I'm going to show you everything I got. But he definitely can be a bright spot. Definitely reminded me of a Neil Hughes S-type player. That Canadian kid that will just run the ball when you need him to. He probably won't be your future back, but I like him a lot. I think he did really good. And Korsak, his kicking is just beauty. He's the reason why Vedvik was expendable. So there's no way he was ever losing that job after the work he did at the beginning of the season.
After game 1, we all knew. So what do you do with this game? Craig Dickinson said that you basically just flush it, which was kind of poetic, giving up, what they did that game. But what do you take much from this game? Like, is it just, okay, well, that's the Banjo Bowl, they get blown out most of the time there, or is there more to it?
Don't get me wrong. I think you can't dwell on it. You need to move on. But at the same time, just to go, oh, well, it's one of those things that happens. Then you guys were defeated before you showed up. If you're telling me that game, who cares? It's the Banjo Bowl. We lose anyway. Then that means that was your mindset going in. And that's why that happened to you. Because the minute you guys got down, you're like, well, whatever. It's the Banjo Bowl. No one cares. You're professional football players. You're paid to play games. You're paid to win games. So just to go, who cares, is just, I hate that so much. But yeah, don't dwell on it. but go, we're going to learn from it. And it's just like one of those things like, yeah, it's the Banjo Bowl. It's tough to play here. Yeah, you're going to have to play there. If you want to win a Grey Cup, you're going to have to go through Winnipeg. So you need to figure out how to win in Winnipeg.
And that's why if I'm the Riders this week, I'm not even paying attention to any of that film. I'm not going back to rewatch any of it. The only time I'm bringing that game back is if they win the West semifinal and have to play Winnipeg in the West final. That's the only time I'm bringing that game back. I don't know what more you can, like, if you're the coaches, you're probably yelling at the guys in the locker room about their effort level. Other than that, like, I mean, what else can you do really? So this specific game, whatever, I just kind of push it off and whatever. But that leads me to the question, who is this team 2/3 into this season? Is this a team that can win a couple close games and just get blown out the rest, which is kind of, what they have been over the last month? Is this a good team? Is this a bad team? What kind of team is this that we have here in Saskatchewan?
I don't think they know. That's the saddest part. I don't think they know who they are. Because you see performances out there that are extremely exceptional. Nick Marshall has had those. You've seen performances that are absolutely terrible. Nick Marshall has those as well. Like, this team, if anything, is consistently inconsistent. You do not know what you're getting game to game. And some of that is due to injury. Some of that is due to makeup. Some of that is due to, I'm assuming, coaching at some point, because if you don't have the right people in the right spots, inconsistencies are going to happen. So what do you do? I don't know. Like, I don't know what's going to happen coming into this game on Friday, because Edmonton's playing pretty good right now ish. The game against them earlier this year was a blown kick through the end zone by the returner, and they weren't good then. But we beat Winnipeg at home. So I don't know. Like, I do not know what this team is, and I am going to white knuckle every game until the end of the season.
The frustrating part is the inconsistency, I think, from the fans. If we knew we were, the Ottawa Red Blacks, bad team. We know that already, right?
Do they know that? Have you seen the X
that.
on? Okay, have you seen their fans' X feeds? I don't think they know that.
They should know that, because Ottawa is a bad team. But once you can accept that, right? Like, it's a lot easier. Halfway through 2015, okay, this is a bad team now, right? 2016, yeah, this is a bad team. But when you keep it close, it's a little bit more fun, and you can, hopefully see them grow. But every time I see this team grow, they take a step back. And we saw that with the team growing and then getting blown out of Montreal. Then they have these 2 games against BC and Winnipeg, and then the Banjo Bowl happens. So it seems like there's always, they make strides and then they just completely collapse.
It's legit 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
And yeah. And like I said, this team, I predicted them to be a 9-9 team, which is an average team, because I always think that good teams win games, find ways to win games. Bad teams find ways to lose games. Average teams do both. This team really, and I thought about it, really, really reminds me of a Roy Shivers, Danny Barrett team.
Thank you. I was thinking the exact same thing.
It really does, because they have some really good talent on this team, just like the Shivers era. They had some great talent in the 2000s.
Those playoff runs, so to speak, like, I have flashbacks of 2003 going.
Kent and Keith.
We're good. Oh my God. Like, so those that don't know, I was a male cheerleader at the U of R. We shut down practice. We practiced Sunday nights, and we had the game playing in the background. And that Western final, we legit shut down to the practice to listen to the game on the radio. And like, are we going like, no, this team's not going to win. And like, those teams were good, but not good at the same time. They had the talent. They just could never put it together. And that's exactly how this team feels right now. You can see individuals that are going to be that could take this team, and then they just can't seem to put a full game together. But that's technically Rider football. That's always been Rider football. A team that cannot put 4 quarters together.
That's kind of been the 113-year tradition of the team. But yeah, I find a lot of similarities in there. I don't know. It's going to take another year or so of them growing together with the core of this team, whoever they decide the core is. Also, some consistency in the quarterback would help. Obviously, injuries threw that out the window. But
here's
it is
my
what
problem
it is, I guess.
How do you build when you got a GM and a coach in a lame duck season? Where do you go from here? Because next year, everything could be turned on its head.
It could be. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look at the difference between the 2006 team and the 2007 team. There wasn't a lot of difference in players. The core was still there. There was, obviously DJ Flick and Wayne Smith trade from Hamilton sure helped out.
Yeah, that definitely did. New quarterback.
But, that team was pretty much the same. It was a very similar team to the team they had that got blown out in BC in 2006 in the West Final. So one thing changed. Kent Austin came in. Whether that's going to happen, I have no idea. But whatever. But overall,
I don't think we want Kent Austin anymore.
No, probably not. But yeah, this is it's a 9-9 team. They're an average team. They're going to keep us on our
10-8.
toes.
10-8. Come on, 10-8.
I hope so. That would be good.
I think I called them 14-4. I overshot this year.
For whatever reason, 9-9 here in Saskatchewan just doesn't sit well with the fans. I feel like a lot of people would rather the team be 8-10 than to be 9-9 because that just brings back the memories of Roy and Danny and just the mediocrity of that era of football. But
can we bring Danny back for the Sastel Max commercials?
Yeah, he's got to film those before. He's still coaching, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah.
He was with Houston, I think. He was the running backs coach. I don't know if he's still there or not. I'd have to look that up. But put him in the plaza. Both of them, Roy and Danny.
Oh yeah,
together.
like it's the fact that they're not in is, like we say all the time, is just a travesty.
Signings this week as practice rosters expand in the CFL. The Riders made 4 signings. Signing a couple on the D line, Braden Thomas and Caleb Sanders, a defensive back, Tedrick Thompson, and receiver John Ursua. So we'll see if any of these guys can get into a game later in the year. Obviously, this isn't something that's going to happen right away, but usually these signings, they're important signings. We see this happen, especially with defensive backs. You sign them in August, September when the practice rosters expand, and then October they play a game or two, and that's exactly what happened with Amari Henderson. That's what happens with
Roland Milligan.
Exactly. They get in for a game or two at the very end and then break out the next season. So remains to be seen, obviously, with these guys. But
1 second, I need to do my Riders fans X impression. But can any of these guys play O-line?
Well, hopefully there's we'll talk about it when we talk about the Edmonton game coming up, but hopefully some help on the O-line coming up. There's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. Let's go to our Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zone as we take a look around the CFL. Just want to remind everybody that the CFL Fans Fight Cancer Riders team signed football raffle is still going on. One entry for $5, 3 for $10, and 10 for $20. If you want to get in on this, I don't have one of the balls beside me, but nice Rough Rider team signed football can be yours. Just shoot us a message on X or Facebook or find us somehow, and we'll get you in there. It's going to go through the rest of September. Draw will be done first week of October, so still plenty of time, but don't forget, get in as soon as you can, and let's raise some money to help fight cancer.
And speaking of which, actually, I know it's not on here, but I want to mention these Stadnick Invitationals this weekend. Golf tournament.
Are you golfing in that?
I am actually.
You are?
It's me and Steve. We are stuck with the two boys, Joel and John Fraser from the Greencast. We are
Oh,
the
no.
Meatball Brigade. We are, and also with this, we are raising money for this. We are all donating based on how many strokes and lost balls. We're also looking for people to actually adopt teams. There's 4 teams, and it's it's going to be a dumb way to raise money. Mark Johnston, of Play 92, and of course of the Riders game host, is also golfing in it. So it's going to be a ton of fun. And we're raising money for cancer. So and it's going to be a long morning. We're teeing off at 8:00. It's
That's
not going
after
to be fun.
the late game too, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
have fun.
It's golf. It's a bad day of golf is better than a good day doing most things. So
That's true. Darnell Sankey, former Rider, signed with Montreal. Do you make much of that?
Was a Rider. I understand it's the East. I don't understand how it helps Montreal. I don't think their defense was that bad. They signed Sean Lemon and Darnell Sankey. Is it going to make a difference against Toronto, who's a buzzsaw right now? Maybe. Sure. I'm glad he's back in the league. I just don't understand how that helps Montreal.
I don't know who else would have made a big pitch for him anyway. Probably one of the teams that isn't going to make the playoffs or wouldn't go past round 1 of the playoffs. So if he wanted to get a little bit of playoff money, that's not a bad team to go to, I guess. I expect them to be in the East final.
Because
you
really, his choices were Calgary, us, Winnipeg, BC, Toronto,
and
no one else was going to sign. No one else was going to sign him,
and none of them need him at all. Well, the Riders might right now, but to break the bank on him, it's not worth it right now.
Like, don't get me wrong, the Riders could have got away with the designated American with Larry Dean, did some fancy finagling on the roster to get him on, but I don't know if they have the money to spare. I don't know where they're at with the cap, even though Trevor Harris is out. But with Philip Blake probably coming back, it's not like he's cheap either. So I don't know. I guess it depends on where the financials are.
The CFL.ca stats page works. Our interview with Randy Ambrosie works because just a couple weeks later, we finally got. I decided, okay, well, it's got to be like yesterday on Monday, as we record this on Tuesday night. I decided, okay, well, I need to look up a couple things on the CFL's website. Let's see what the PDF has to say this week, and it was the exact same stuff that they had the last few years. It was the top 15 in each category there. Plus there was an option to load more, which I haven't seen yet this year. And this is so great. I mean, the pictures of the players, instead of being, like a little circle, it was all stretched out. So it looked awful, but they had it going and I'm so happy about it. This is great. So I could actually find out that, oh, look, Tevin Jones has this many yards receiving, because you can't go onto Riderville and check that out. So now you should be able to. I don't know what happened. Finally got pressured enough. So I know a lot of people listen to Randy Ambrosie and hear him talk in circles, which he is very good at. A commissioner.
And that's
of
why he got
league.
And that's why he got the job.
Is going to do that, right? That is his job, is to do that. But to come out and say, frankly, we're not impressed with it and we're frustrated with it, and then 2 weeks later something changes, that's good to see. That's promising to see. Obviously, there's going to be still some work to be done, but it does show that they're serious in improving their product. So thank you, CFL, for doing that.
CFL.ca got the Piffles bump. That's all I'm going to say about it.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it.
We did it. Oh.
Well, Riders and Elks this upcoming Friday. You mentioned it, Greg, the O-line with Philip Blake. Let's start there with the offensive line. Evan Johnson was back practicing in day one, which I never thought I'd be so excited about seeing Evan Johnson come back. Everybody knows we're not a big fan
You
of
and
his
me
on
both.
the show. But
He is my favorite Husky, though.
do you think Steve's listening again?
I'm hoping he just like I'll go to the picks. We'll fast forward a bit.
Yeah. But Evan Johnson back practicing is good. Not that Logan Bandy was bad by any means, but just to have the continuity in the O-line is so important, and to have Evan Johnson back there is a big step up. Philip Blake was a full participant in day one of practice. Britton Gray of the Green Zone saying he may not play until next week. If that's the case, great. Because he's eligible to play in this game, but if you just one game him here, then coming back from a torn pec and only missing 12 or 13 games, whenever they do decide to bring him back, would be absolutely huge. So if they can get Blake back in that lineup, that's a big deal for this Riders offense.
To me, this is still insane. Everyone wrote him off for this season. And the fact that he might play 5 games, regular season, and whatever playoff games we have blows my mind. Like maybe Trevor Harris isn't that far off. We might actually have a full our so-called starting lineup going into the last part of the season. Just didn't think it was going to happen.
So with the talk of the O-line there, with what we saw last week in the Banjo Bowl, are you worried about the offense or offensive line coming up this week against Edmonton?
No. It's Edmonton. I understand they are the Elks, but I'm not that concerned about, yes, it's a Chris Jones defense, and Chris Jones so-called is a defensive genius, blah, 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 blah. I am not that concerned. The one thing that does concern me is how they're going to contain Trey Ford. That's the only thing I'm worried about going this game, and I know we're going to talk about it, but I'm not concerned about the Elks defense because while they're not bad, they're not great either, and I think the Riders have the tools that will match up well and should win this game.
Okay, well, let's talk about Trey Ford then. Both times that the Riders played the Elks, it was against Taylor Cornelius.
I miss him.
Earlier,
can they bring him back?
Kidding. Earlier this year, and the Riders had trouble stopping him when he ran. And
Trey Ford's faster.
Awful quarterback. And Trey Ford is a trending upwards quarterback. He's getting there, and he's getting more reps, and he's looked better than Cornelius ever has. And he's a much better runner. Not that you're not going to have Micah Tight spy him. The Riders have proven they're not going to have any of their linebackers spy anybody.
They better this game.
That's just not what their defense does, though. They run too much zone
they
for
have
that to work.
They have to do something because you cannot let him run. You cannot let him run around that. It is legit Madden 04. Michael Vick in the backfield, and you just keep on running around until the defense gets bored of waiting, and then you just keep on running. And that's what Trey Ford is doing. He's just buying time until he sees a breakdown, and if he can't find anything to throw, he runs. You have to keep him. You have to make him throw the ball. And yeah, he's so far shown he's a better quarterback than Cornelius, but he still needs to be able to throw the ball. So keep your defense tight. Keep him in the backfield, and you'll be fine. The minute you break down coverage to let him run the ball, it's going to be a long night.
I wonder how they're going to attack it, though, because they usually don't have anybody spy. Now, you're also getting Pete Robertson returning this game. So is there going to be a lot of contain on his end instead of just straight up trying to rush the passer? Anthony Lanier didn't practice in day one here. Don't know what his status is yet for the game. But if he happens to miss the game and it's Lake Corte Moore or Cody Roscoe getting a start, there's not a lot of experience from those guys. And you get a running quarterback and you overcommit to something, he's going to be able to take off. So I'm really curious how they're going to attack him with contain and force him to beat him with your arm. Because if you do keep him in the pocket, I like the Riders' chances. But once he starts moving around and running around, I don't know. I really don't.
The good news is he can't pull a Nelson, like grab a guy and use him as a blocker. I need to get a Simons reference before we're done.
Somebody should try that.
But it's just, I don't know. Trey Ford is the only X factor in this game, is because we really haven't seen much of him. And yeah, now at least we have some tape on him due to other games, but the team plays better with him than Taylor Cornelius. I don't think they're going to win this week. But once again, I think no one's going to be able to leave their seats till the end of the game, because that's just who this team is.
Well, and Deontay Williams, defensive back, missed day one of practice. Trumaine Washington, who the Riders signed a couple weeks ago for their practice roster, was getting reps with the ones. And I've been waiting to kind of see him because...
So have I. I can't believe it's taken this long, to be honest.
Led the CFL in interceptions in 2021 in the shortened season there. Guy's a good, experienced defensive back. So if you have any kind of injury issues, like now's the time to see him. Especially when Eugene Lewis is starting to turn back into Eugene Lewis, making some big plays, and Trey Ford is finding him deep, often in the last few games anyway. If you can stop Eugene Lewis, I don't really like the rest of the Elks receivers as a whole. But if you stop him, I mean, Dunbar has actually started to turn it up a little bit. But if you can put your best guy on Dunbar and contain Eugene Lewis and not have him make that big play, then I like the Riders' chances.
All I know is this better be a good effing Nick Marshall night, not a bad effing Nick Marshall night, because it could be a long night.
Well, anytime he's had a bad game, he usually seems to bounce back with a really good one the next. So, I mean, he's had way more good games this year than bad games.
Oh, 100%. Sure. And there's a point there in the middle of the season where no one went at him, but the minute the Bombers realized that he was having a bad day, they just eviscerated him.
Yeah. And it all comes down to which Rider team shows up, not just Nick Marshall, but the rest of them. If they walk into this thinking that they're going to have an easier time because they should beat the Elks on it, and on paper they absolutely should. But if they go in with that mindset, that's recipe for disaster. And they need a quick start. I think they really need a quick start in this game just to get that confidence going, keep the crowd in it. And we've seen some really lively crowds at Mosaic Stadium this year. This has been honestly the first year in this stadium that the crowd has really been as loud as they have been.
Minus the first year. The first year, of course, it was the spectacle of the new stadium. But yeah, the last couple of games, you can feel something building in the crowd.
People brought it.
I'm hoping that carries over. My only concern, it's a Friday night game, and but that out-of-town crowd.
Lights out with a Friday night game, the only Friday night game of the year. I'm hoping that's, kind of a catalyst for, people out to have fun and yell a whole bunch and get really loud and have a lot of fun. So the team feeds off that. So they're gonna need that. So Rider Nation, show up and get that team into it early. Because if they get into it early, I really, really like their chances. But if they come out flat to start, then I don't know if they have enough to come back, even against Edmonton.
This team definitely has an issue once they fall behind. That's when you see the really dumb penalties. That's when you see they get frustrated. They play better. Most teams play better from the lead, but the Riders especially. The minute they fall behind, it's a gong show. I had other things I wanted to say, but they're not PG.
Well, I'm looking forward to this one. I got some friends coming in from Edmonton from the game. I've got a friend coming in from Calgary for the game as well, too, who I'm sitting with. So I'm looking forward to seeing more the great members of the CFL family, because the Banjo Bowl was great for that. So we were treated excellent there, and I know we'll treat everybody great here as well too for this game. But looking forward to seeing a lot of people I haven't seen in a while. So
It's weird. This game is going to have Red Blacks fans, Stamps fans. The CFL is a weird fraternity, family, whatever the heck you want to call it. It's who cares who's playing? Let's just have fun. And I'm glad to be a part of it.
That's why I love it. Let's take a look at the games this week, and I can incorrectly guess the spreads. We'll start with the first game, doubleheader, Friday and Saturday. The first game on Friday, Toronto at Montreal. Toronto can clinch first place after only 12 games.
This line hasn't moved, and it's you know who is favored. So, what do you think it is?
Yeah, Toronto by 7.5.
6.5.
I'll
my
take
my favorite part of this, high over under 52.5.
I don't see Montreal contributing a lot to that.
I don't either.
Especially if Cody Fajardo keeps Fajardoing like he has been the last month. He's been just bad to the point where I'm thinking you need to at least get in Caleb Evans a little bit just to give Fajardo a break.
Once again, I said it last week, Cody is trying too hard. I'm hoping he can get his head on straight, but yeah, like he takes, and that's both his blessing and his curse. He wants to win so bad, he takes it very personally and puts it all on himself when he needs to realize he's got an entire team around him. So don't force the ball. Do not make a decision. Play the game like you know you can play. And unfortunately, I see Toronto just mollywopping Montreal this week.
Good choice of words. Yeah. Toronto plus the points. I don't care what it is. They're going to clinch first here, and then they can just kind of coast the rest of the year. I'm really curious.
Which is good for us.
Yeah. I assume Toronto's going to win, and assuming they do, I'm really interested to see how they attack the rest of the season. Who gets a rest?
5 games.
Where?
5 games. It's nuts.
Like, are they going to start? Obviously, you're not going to rest your starters for all those games, clearly, but does one guy who maybe have a little bit of a nagging injury, do you put him on the one game for a week and let him get a little bit healthier? Whereas if it was a meaningful game for them, obviously he would play. So I'm really curious how Toronto's going to attack the last third of the year for them. I've never seen a team clinch first this fast. This is wild to me.
Here's a question for you. Would you put a guy in a 6 game just to pull him off early?
No.
Just curious.
If you know you're going to, then there's no reason to.
I guess it would be different if Toronto clinched last week. Do you sit a guy for 6 games and save on his
maybe
save on his salary?
Hey, Chad Kelly, we don't really need you again for another.
I was thinking more Andrew Harris.
Yeah, I mean, with the way AJ Ouellette's playing, they don't really need Harris.
No, you can put him on the shelf and bring him out for playoffs. But an idea. But then again, if you pull him off early, you got to pay his full salary anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and I mean his contract is guaranteed anyway. Obviously, the full thing doesn't count against the cap if he's on the 6th game. But
exactly,
if you're going to pay him, well, I mean, whatever, you might as well pay him. I would actually play Andrew Harris a lot more right now if they clinch first early.
Save Ouellette for the playoffs.
Exactly. Game 2 of the week. Doubleheader on
this
the Friday.
line has moved.
Edmonton at Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, I'm going to say now is at -2.5.
They started at -2.5. It is now -3.
Well, seeing as all their wins combined, all 6 of them are by a total of about 14 points, maybe less actually. God, they really should win by 3 or more. They really, really should.
Oh, this is going to be a single win again. It shouldn't be. It feels like it's going to be.
I'll take the Riders to cover that 3 points.
I'm taking the Riders. It's a lower over under at 45.5. So
Yeah, I can't see it being much more than that anyway.
no, I'm thinking it's going to be a low scoring affair, which is going to be a bit of a snooze fest, but it is what it is.
Well, I mean, the last game here against Edmonton was a snooze fest until the final 2.5 minutes, and then that ended up being some of the wildest 2.5 minutes you've ever seen. So,
Oh, so good.
um,
I just got that poorly the My Heart Will Go On recorder song in my head that I put the punch to.
just awful ending to a game.
It was a great ending.
Oh well, I mean, for Rider fans, absolutely was, but just yeah, I still feel bad for the guy for Sims.
I'm going to do something that I will never do. I'm going to bring someone's name up that I said I would never talk about. The difference between, actually, I won't even say his name. The difference between the Rider broadcast and the Elks broadcast in that moment. Oh, it is so, especially if you find the cut where someone put them together. The Elks, you had Dave
And Morley, yeah.
And Morley just losing their mind in absolute despair.
Well, it was what are you doing? You got to bring it out. You got to bring it out. What are you doing?
And then you've got Luke and the other guy. And they're saying the same thing, except they're happy. It's like, it was such a flip of the coin. It was just a wild way to finish a game. I've never seen people so happy for a single in my life. It was hilarious.
I have a story I'll tell you off air about being happy for a single.
I had a reference I was going to make,
Steve.
and I decided to turn a corner because I realized the joke I was about to make.
Yeah. It involves Steve, actually. And not Chris Streveler, although I'll find a way to get Chris Streveler in there with Steve. Oh, I didn't mention that Steve was actually on the field with Chris Streveler at the Banjo Bowl.
We alluded to it. We just never told the story.
Yeah. So what it was they brought him in for autograph signing pregame at the Bomber tailgate, and then they had a in-game interview with him, as I know they had on the broadcast as well, because John Liu was there in his swoot, which is just fantastic.
I love John Liu. The dude's like the fashion plate of the CFL. The dude's a fashion plate. Love him.
I mean, dude's wearing sweatsuit, a suit.
It's legit made of sweater material. It's awesome.
Looks amazing, and he's a funny guy. If you ever get a chance to see him at a Grey Cup or at a game or something, and you have a chance to actually talk to him, he is awesome. I love John Liu. He's my favorite on TSN right now.
My only problem with John Liu, he made the career decision to move from Montreal to Winnipeg.
It's home for him,
I guess, but it's still Winnipeg.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, there's I think it was about 5 or 6 minutes left, maybe closer to 10 minutes left in the second quarter. And some of the Bomber in-game team comes to our section and says, we need some volunteers for halftime. Didn't say what it was. Okay. So a couple of people got up, went with them. They came back. We need 5 more. And I thought Steve was at the Rum Hut. He spent a lot of time there. And I thought he was just there. Sure enough, he actually went and volunteered with them. It ended up being 10-on-10 bubble soccer on the field.
I wish I was there. I'm king of bubble soccer. But.
So it was 10 Bomber fans and 10 Rider fans. And there was one guy in the Bomber jersey that was, I mean, obviously you're not going to go after the soccer ball. You're going after everybody else in the big bubbles, right?
That would have been me.
But he was getting everybody from behind, and then he would chicken off somewhere. And I'm like, yep, that would definitely be a guy wearing a Bomber jersey right there. Like he wouldn't even let them get up. He just kept jumping on them. I'm like, okay, buddy, like whatever. Yeah. But during the game itself, that's when they did their in-game, in-stadium interview with Chris Streveler. And Steve was sharing the field with his hero, Chris Streveler. And it was just fate. It was excellent.
They locked eyes across the field. They knew.
Oh, they knew. 100%. And that was Steve's crowning moment of the weekend. and probably of his life.
And that's why he's not here, because he just can't deal with the loss of being that close to Streveler and probably never be there again.
It's okay, Steve. We'll get him on the show one day. And
Steve, we're here for you. Like, talk to us, please. He's gonna hate us so much.
Oh yeah, he already does. Yeah, I know he does. Did you see what the words he said in our DM group? Yeah,
Well,
he's
my favorite thing is you said something, and I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. And he gave words to both of us. I'm like, I haven't said anything yet, and all he says is like, I know who you are. I'm like, that's hurtful. I am a human being, Steve.
It's accurate, but it hurts.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of Chris Streveler's Bombers, they're in Hamilton this week. Hamilton all of a sudden 1 game out of a home playoff game. Important win for them last week.
Welcome to the East.
Yeah, important win for them last week. Also keeping Calgary out of the playoffs, which if you can keep Calgary out of the playoffs is great with me, because I just feel tingly knowing that Calgary's going to miss the playoffs. It makes me so happy inside.
Like I said, I don't know what to do with myself. Like, if Calgary misses the playoffs, what am I going to do?
And how great would it be this week if it was, a Montreal win, a Saskatchewan win, a Hamilton win, heck, even an Ottawa win, just while Calgary's on the bye, and just fall even further behind everybody. How great would that be?
That'd be amazing.
So anyway, it's Winnipeg at Hamilton. I'm guessing
Has not moved.
Like 9.5 for Winnipeg.
No,
not that high.
You're high.
Really?
6.5.
Really?
6.5. Yeah.
Yeah. Bombers.
You would think. Well, then again, don't get me wrong. Hamilton at home, but you would think. But maybe they think the Bombers. You know what? They were mad at the Riders, but yeah, no, 6.5. They're minus 115. 47.5 is the line. Winnipeg, I easily covers that number. I don't see how they don't. They are too good.
Yeah. And they can't quite clinch first, but they're still in the battle with BC for first. And I know they want to get that done and out of the way. So O'Shea will have them bring their A game this week. So yeah, give me the Bombers and the points on that one. And the final game of the week is Ottawa at BC. Last time we saw an East team travel out to BC that we expected to get blown out, they ended up blowing out BC when it was Hamilton. So,
but this is Ottawa.
This is Ottawa. BC probably by what, 8?
9.5.
9.5. Yeah. They should. They should absolutely cover that.
Yeah, they absolutely should. And
Ottawa.
that's why I'm taking chalk all the way through here. I don't see a single upset amongst the group this week. I think BC is going to win and by the spread.
Yeah, they absolutely should. Everybody's figured Dustin Crum out, and since they have, he's done absolutely nothing. And Ottawa on the road. I know Ottawa on the road is better than Ottawa at home, but that's a long trip out to BC. And yeah, BC will win.
And then some.
And I think that's all we got this week. Did I miss anything? Not like Steve misses Chris Streveler though, but like
I know, unless we want to make more Chris Streveler jokes because Steve's not here.
Well, let's do that to his face next week. Let's make more Chris Streveler jokes. Deal.
And I got to deal with him on Saturday, so if a Chris Streveler cutout ends up in our golf cart, who knows?
Maybe we should make something work Friday for the tailgate. We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, enjoy the Riders and Elks this Friday for lights out game. They're giving out 7,000 light up glasses, so I'm hoping to get in early to get a pair of those.
Lights out's always fun, and it's not a theme.
No,
it's an event.
Yeah,
but not a theme.
Play the game with no lights on. That's a theme.
Yeah, there you go. Nothing but spotlights.
Yeah,
make the quarterbacks play in the dirt. No, it's gonna be a fun night. It's the show is always fun. But yeah, it's not a theme. And it should be a good game. Friday night game, only Friday night game at Mosaic this year. So it's going to have its usual TSN shenanigans, I'm certain. There's going to be a odd call from the booth. That's about it.
Well, luckily we won't have to listen to it because we'll be there.
Exactly.
But thank you, everyone, listening to the Piffles podcast, watching on YouTube or on SaskTel Max. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed. As we leave you, Piffles podcast, of course, brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sask Drive in Regina. Special thanks, as always, go out to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support to make this show possible. And thank you again. This is Ghost Behind Your Mind by Tyler Gilbert.